he paid the proration, he got his sticker within 30 days, no problem. Ms. LeBar, who sent us this letter, apparently didn't know, or says she didn't know, so we should give her a break or send out postcards to everybody.
It's not just one citizen. It's not just one citizen.
And that's fine.
And number one, so it's not like it's just Ms. LeBar. And there were several phone calls I had in regards to this. All the people in the office, we should not be making money. If we want to make money, then we raise the taxes or we cut spending. We should not be making money off fines. It should not be a revenue stream for us in Caroline County. To me, it's underhanded. And yes, the letter comes out that we get the notice in February. Okay, I'm not going to remember what's on the back of my notice, the filing thing that I have to do in December. I'm not going to remember that in July when I buy a new vehicle. There are a lot of people on the western side of the county, Lake Caroline, Lake Landor. There are a lot of people that have jobs in D.C. and Richmond, and it's not simple for them to drive over to Bowling Green and report that. It should be something there's a DMV sends the Commissioner of Revenue, the Treasurer. They send reports about what people have.
They don't have to drive over.
All right, that's
I
a mail-in
do it online. I do.
Yeah. Is the tag sent to them? Is the sticker sent to them?
That's not my.
That's
the treasurer's office. They're still going to have to take the drive.
That's the treasurer.
One way or another.
But they can do that by mail too. They can
Not my responsibility.
Yeah, they can do the sticker by mail.
No, they cannot. No, they cannot.
I thought you
No, they cannot. And so my concern is this. My concern is it's the total cost of this. The total cost of this is what is the total cost? $4,200.
That's an estimate with current numbers.
To send a postcard out. That was the compromise that Ms. Carter had
Plus
come up
staff
with.
time. Plus staff time. Plus staff time.
Do it.
This will be the least intrusive.
Okay.
I guess.
All right,
Can I just ask a question? I just want to
You
make
can
sure I
ask a question
understand.
because I think we
All right,
finished discussing.
Okay. If I buy a vehicle, I have 30 days to register it and get a county tag. If I come over to your office within 30 days after I buy that vehicle, my car will automatically get registered and I will get my decal. So this will not happen to me if I follow the policy.
Right, and Mr. Taylor, we try to give a lag time there. I do not penalize anyone until 60 days.
Yeah. You can't let people violate the policy and reward them for doing it. I mean, the fact is, they did not come in within 30 days. So
I think
The people
They got
don't know
fined.
about it.
I think we have discussed
ignorance to
All right,
the law
gentlemen.
is inexcusable. I didn't know that the speed limit was 45, but that didn't keep me from getting a ticket.
I knew it was
I'm
45. I was
finished.
speeding.
All
All
Thank you,
right.
Mr. Chairman.
We have, we've discussed this issue, and the chair is at this point in time willing to entertain a motion. Is there a motion before the chair that we would like to
I'd like to make a
entertain?
motion to, I guess, to direct or ask the Commissioner of Revenue to send the postcards to those people who have bought vehicles during the year.
And appropriate $4,000.
And appropriate $4,000.
Yes, sir, and probably a little more next year.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor, or we've had enough discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Taylor, how do you vote?
Nay.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
And I vote nay. So that motion fails 3-2. Mr. Black, I would offer for you a substitute motion that only penalizes the people who failed to comply $10.
Now
Well,
we've got to
that'd
go
be
to
ordinance.
ordinance. Got to go to ordinance then.
Well,
This is just a request.
This will be our first reading. Is that what you'd like to do? Otherwise, there's still...
Now,
there's still gonna be more.
let's be careful here, because you have an annual filing, and then you have proration. The annual filing, if we put $10 on it, we're going to be scrambling to get the information.
I'm just talking about the proration.
Gotcha.
I've been in your office February 2nd. And you didn't give me 60 days.
I told you to do it now.
Mr. Black, would you like to pursue proration as just a $10 fine and by ordinance? And we could have staff develop an ordinance to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, could we table this until the next meeting?
Well, there's nothing to table. We've already decided. We already decided on one.
You can bring it
You can bring it back at the next meeting if you'd like to change your vote now to yes. or now to no, because under Robert's Rules of Order, a motion to reconsider can only be made by the prevailing side.
Right. I'm going to wait till the next meeting.
And you're going to leave your vote as is?
But you won't be able to bring it back unless you vote yes.
Okay, I'm trying to tell you again, in order to have a motion to reconsider, it must come from the prevailing side.
Okay. All right, I'll change my vote to yes so we can bring it back.
All right, Mr. Black is now, thank you, Ms. Carter, for your time. Mr. Black has now asked that his vote be changed from,
Okay.
I guess, yes to no.
Yes, today.
So Mr. Black is now a member of the prevailing side and would be allowed under Robert's Rules of Order to reconsider the motion. Okay. Agenda item number 9 and 10, is that both Chief Loftus? Chief? Okay, the first one is a proposed agreement with VDOT that would install basically light switches on all of our traffic lights that would allow the emergency vehicles to go through. The only issue I saw in the whole proposal was that if we decide to get out of the program, that we would have to remove the lights at the county's expense. But since this is a joint venture with VDOT, the odds on that happening are kind of slim.
That's correct.
All right, and there are several other jurisdictions doing it. So, board members have this in front of them in their packets. Any questions you have of Chief Loftus?
Well, here's one of my questions, Mr. Chairman. Is agenda item 10 is also sort of a budget issue?
Yes.
And I think we need to look at this comprehensively.
We can look at this. What you have before you is two parts. One is the agreement with VDOT.
Right.
There is no cost associated with that. That just states
Right.
any new traffic light put up in the county, that VDOT would fund the preemption devices. The second part of that is to allow me to apply for a grant, the Rescue Squad
pay for it.
Assistance Fund.
Right.
And we would be asking for using the unspent funds from fiscal year 14 to cover the local match, if awarded.
Basically, net to the county now is zero.
Correct.
No additional funds. You understand that, Mr. Jones? You understand?
I understand, Mr. Chairman. I have no problem with going forward and doing the agreement with VDOT
Okay. And applying for the grant?
and applying for the grant.
Okay. Anybody else have a problem? Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Taylor. That we move forward, we can do those together because they're joint. One proposal, that we move forward with the proposed agreement with VDOT for installation and maintenance of emergency vehicle preemptive devices, and allow Mr. Loftus to apply for a grant to pay for the matching funds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Chief, you have also agenda item number 10 since you're here.
That is correct.
Agenda item number 10 is proposed use of emergency services capital reserve funds.
That's correct. I'd like to call the board's attention to District Chief Melson, who's here as well, to speak specifically on one of those items, being the Ladysmith construction project, as well as he can help answer any questions you may have, as well as myself on the remaining. Before you, you have a request to use the 2014 unspent capital or unspent operations funds from that budget year. If you recall, the board set those funds aside at the August meeting. What I have before you is a plan to spend those, as well as some additional funds from the building maintenance fund, which was detailed in your letter by Mr. Parton, where those funds came from, to help pay for the renovations both at Ladysmith and at Bowling Green fire stations. If you look on the chart that you were given in your packet, you see the projects that are outlined for both of those funds to be spent on, as well as a small percentage, $6,600 from fiscal year 13 that was unspent. We're looking to replace 3 light vehicles. We're looking to purchase a cascade system or breathing system on a trailer. That's how we fill our air tanks and air bottles. That would be housed at the Bowling Green station. It would be servicing both Port Royal, Bowling Green, and Frog Level. We're looking for the repair funds to be associated with the projects for Bowling Green and Ladysmith, as well as the cost share for the preemptive devices that if we were to be awarded the grant, we would have money set aside to pay for those. A GIS mapping project, which I can go in detail, or Mr. Culley can, either one. And then the remainder to be set as a reserve in case any of these projects were to go over. Now, where we are with one of the biggest ones is the Ladysmith Fire Station repair at $150,000. We have gone out, we have done the engineering for the renovation on that building. Kevin Whiteman has looked at those plans. Those plans are ready to go out to be bid so that we can actually bring real costs back to the board along with agreement with Ladysmith and the county that Mr. Emerson is working on. Before I can go out to bid, there is I believe a general statute that says the board does need to allocate money before we can bid that project. I don't know that this project will cost $150,000. I don't know that it won't cost more. I just picked a number, and I had the reserve in there in case that number were to go over. But without real cost construction estimates, we're kind of we're guessing at it. So this is the next step, is to go out for a bid on the project. We hope to bring to you the agreement in draft form sometime in January or the February board meeting, one of those two, so that you can look at the draft agreement and you can look at actual cost numbers and we can make a determination from there. The Bowling Green Fire Station repair, and this is the apron and parking lot, they have gone out and sought engineering services. They've paid for those on their own, and they've solicited four bids for the construction. That represents one of those bids that they selected. I will answer any questions about the other projects that I can.
Okay, in our board packet, I think we all have the projects, or can see them. If you got Acrobat, you can do rotate pages. So, any questions for Chief Loftus on the issues he's got? Mr. Taylor, we'll start at your end this time.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. You say the county does not own the buildings, so we have to put something in place in the event if we're going to spend money in buildings that we do not own, then we have to do something to, if you will, protect the county in the event that for some reason the building is no longer used. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this has come before the board. What I'm requesting is county funds to be put in a building that the county doesn't own. Okay. Do you have to have an agreement? The answer is no. But the fact is, if we invest county dollars in this building, something happens, and I'll use Frog Level Rescue down the road, the county invested $40,000 or $50,000 into that building. We don't own that building at the dissolution of the department. So in this case, we want to spend county dollars in a building that is essential for our operation. If something were to happen to that organization down the road, we want to make sure the taxpayers will be able to get those funds out of the building one way or another. And really, we're going to continue to use that station. It is in a strategic location, so it is a good investment. To have that agreement in place down the road, 20 years down the road, I think is prudent for spending taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, so basically we would be protected. I guess they would have to sell the building. I just don't know how the county's going to recoup its investment.
The way the agreement would be worded, and we went to a board meeting, we had 3 parameters. Basically, if the organization itself failed to exist, then the property, the real property, would revert to a county asset. And at that point, the county would have control of that asset should the volunteer organization fail to exist. We need to invest in that station, and we're trying to find a vehicle to do that.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with investing in it. I just want to make sure that should something happen down the road, that the county would be covered. The only other question that I had, in your the mobile compressor unit.
Correct.
Are there other vehicles that have this capability already, or is this the only one?
Right now, we have a compressor and cascade system at the Ladysmith Fire Station. We have a compressor and cascade at Bowling Green in the Squad 1. Squad 1 is 17 years old. It is a very small system. The problem with a in-vehicle compressor and cascade is when it comes time to fix it or find a leak, you essentially have to tear the truck apart in order to do that. We had a leak in the Squad 1 vehicle, and we didn't fix it for years. And we only fixed it recently because it backed into the building and needed a major taking apart and putting back together. So I'm trying to find a solution that will compensate for Frog Level not having a compressor, and Port Royal not having a compressor, and our department having a mobile compressor that we can bring to fires, regardless. You can pull it with a truck, it's on a trailer, we can bring it to a fire, we can bring it to training, and not tie up a large vehicle in that process, but also fulfill the daily needs of those stations that are to the north and to the south. The compressor we have at Ladysmith will take care of Upper Caroline and Ladysmith's needs.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I just have maybe Chief Melson or yourself can answer this. The only question that I have, and I agree, these are all capital improvements. I understand that you guys have been suffering where you've got equipment issues. I mean, I understand, I saw firsthand the building issue. My only question, since the county does not, and I understand what you said about, you know, putting county money into these buildings, my only question is with both Bowling Green and Ladysmith, the $150,000, is there any money going to be put in by the volunteer departments themselves as a cost sharing to these projects? Even if it's an 80-20 or 70-30 situation, is there any, you know, I guess, do they have any, you know, kind of, yes, basically. It's for,
yeah, in the agreement that the board approved, you approved some guiding principles. I didn't bring them with me, but you approved 3 guiding principles, and one of those was a cost share.
Okay.
And if the company for some reason couldn't make that cost share for financial reasons, they would have to justify that to the board. We're not there yet because we don't have that physical agreement. When we have that, then the company, myself, will be back to the board to discuss how much and at what level. The other thing is, we don't have any cost estimates. We've got engineering estimates that are in $50,000 clumps. So we need actual pricing of what this project's going to cost to see what they can fiscally contribute and still stay viable as an organization. So no decision is being made. We're just allocating a chunk of money so we can go out to bid. We can throw those bids out, as you've seen with other projects. But until we know what the real cost is, we really can't go any further.
I guess the secondary thing to this, because this, I mean, with Ladysmith, this happened, I believe it was brought to my attention, I want to say last October. So I think we're 12, 13 months.
It's been going on since September of last year.
Yes,
I was
September.
in Alaska when I got the phone call.
Right, okay. And I guess my concern is, I'd like to see, we've been talking about it for, and I understand perspective, how quickly can we start actually working on getting this complete?
In all honesty, as soon as, in my eyes and Chief Loftus' eyes, we communicate almost daily about this, is get approval tonight to allocate said number of funds so that we can put it out to bid. He would get the bid out. We've already got the bid packet. It's just a matter of putting it in the system through the requisition process through the county, putting it out to bid. With that turnaround, we should have something back within 30 days, I would think, so that January, February, God forbid, there should be some work going on somewhere.
Now, do the, and I think maybe, do the members of your volunteer department understand that there could be there's some financial, they will be asked to, requested to put some financial backing towards this?
My department has been totally upfront with how much money we have to our name.
Okay.
From the word go. If we had the money, I would not be standing before you today going through this and would not have been dealt with it for a year. The way business is done today, we can't go to the bank anymore and say, hey, we're the fire department down the street. Can we borrow $300,000 to fix our building?
No, right.
Somebody's got to put their name on it. And I'm not in a situation with a wife and 3 kids personally that I can put my name on that note. So that's why we're here before you today. We have about $50,000 to our name that we have to sustain ourselves off of outside of what doesn't get funded through the county for recruitment and retention of our own members, for other equipment that may be deemed necessary, and for us to give money back to the community through funds that we have set up to where we pay for benefit funds for needy families, for giving stuff back to Toys for Tots. We are a nonprofit organization, so that's what we're in the business for, is to make sure we're giving back to the community. So there's events that we do to make sure we get that money back, and that's where the stuff gets rolled into. And we understand that, you know, the county may not be able to fund this entire project, and we'll do what we can do to put that back. We also have to make sure that we have money set aside to help fund the stuff that we were put in place for. And our department and our membership is 100% supportive, knowing that, you know, we have to sign over the fact that if we cease to exist one day, that the property goes back to the county to still serve as a fire station, and it's not property of Ladysmith Fire Department. We built that fire station in 1987 for the sole purpose of serving the community as a fire station, and we want it to continue at that rate. The problem is it's deteriorated to a point now with almost 8 years of putting in for capital improvement plans that hasn't been funded by the county to the amount of almost $70,000. That's half the project, half the problem here. We put in for floor repair to the second floor for 8 years now through the CIP, and it hasn't been funded by the county. So now it's all coming to a head.
Let me ask a quick question. Did any of that funding ever get past the county administrator?
I don't know, sir.
Okay, because I don't recall capital improvement floor for 8 years. So, I mean, it may have gotten cut before it got out of the fire department's budget.
I just roll it over every year.
Okay.
And keep putting it in to the system. After that, you know, it's out of my hands.
All right. Yeah, we didn't, I know I didn't see it in the last few years, but that's another story. I just wanted
Yeah, I mean,
to see about the process.
I put in for it again this year. We got parking lot repair. I mean, asphalt's like $1 million a mile.
Yes.
I've got a parking lot that's been paved. It's got cracks that are growing just like that. If we don't do something with that in the next year or two, we're going to be in the same problem Bowling Green is. We got a station and it's fixed now, but we can't get the trucks on the Route 1.
You can't drive in there.
So,
All
I mean,
right.
it's just that stuff, guys. And I mean,
Okay.
I can, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good. I mean, you've explained it enough.
No,
You explained it enough.
All
I
right.
mean, you're good. Any other questions? Mr. Underwood, you have any questions? No, sir. Mr. Seeley? You had?
I just have some questions for Chief Loftus. The three vehicles, the vehicles you want to buy, where will those go?
They'll be assigned to different people. You want to know specifically?
That's,
Okay, one of those will be assigned to Deputy Chief Madiak. His vehicle has 200,000 miles. It is an emergency response vehicle. That's his position to do that. Deputy Chief Garnett and his vehicle would be pushed down to one of the operations captains. Deputy Chief Garnett's vehicle is a licensed EMS vehicle. It is a diesel. It has to be plugged in. It is not cost effective, nor does he need to be driving a licensed EMS unit on a daily basis. Someone else needs to be. That'll be passed down. The third vehicle is for Captain Doucette in training. Her vehicle, again, is an emergency response vehicle for a paramedic, as well as a staff vehicle during the daytime. All of these vehicles were purchased used or on surplus, or they came to the department when the department merged all the volunteer fire departments. They are part of a 52 vehicle fleet, and these vehicles are generally not considered capital because they're not over $55,000, so you don't see them in your capital budget each year. Chief Melson drives one of these vehicles that needs to be replaced, a surplus vehicle. What we have is basically 2000 to 2005 Crown Vics for those staff vehicles.
Sheriff cars.
Sheriff cars, exactly. Surplus vehicles, they had served a life. Because of money, we're trying to do the best we can out of them, but they are costing me a fortune to fix.
and I guess my other question is, did we run this by the fire commission at all of these,
The ESC?
all of it? The whole, this
The
whole
emergency
agenda
services?
item number
Yes,
10?
emergency
Right.
services.
No, we have not met with them on a regular basis. We're trying to find a mission for them that they can tackle in that period. But our budget process goes through the county administrator as an employee of him. We bring it to the command staff meeting, what needs to be replaced. These items are on our capital items with the exception of the mapping project, which was an issue that came up this year. They're reoccurring items. If you recall, back in 2013 when I had funds left over, we were asking for vehicles then. And quite frankly, this is where we are. We have 52 vehicles in our fleet. And our capital improvement asks for $1 million a year for the next 10 years. That will replace vehicles at an average age of 17 years old. The oldest being 32 and the youngest would be 9. So we are in desperate need of vehicles. I'm not going to get $1 million a year. But all we're doing is pushing that problem further down the road, and I'm taking old vehicles and investing good taxpayers' money where I shouldn't be. If I've got a transmission that needs to be replaced in a 2000 Crown Vic, I shouldn't be doing that. I've exceeded the cost of the vehicle. So those are the decisions I'm making, trying to avoid those. Thank you.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Seaman?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Cully, and I guess Ms. Cosby, is it possible for us to allocate the money to the Fire Rescue and Emergency Management Department as a lump sum, with the caveat that he would have to come back and get everything approved before he spent it? Because I would like to say, Chief, here's $630,000 in your fund, without letting everybody know exactly how much you've got for Bowling Green and Ladysmith to fix.
Okay.
Because if I was a bidder and I knew what you had, my bid's going to be $1 under what you got. So if we can do something like that without...
I could change my number to 100 grand and leave the rest in the reserve.
That's why we put the 61 reserve, because we weren't sure what, we didn't really...
Yeah, but I mean, we don't
don't
necessarily want to know what the numbers are
Yeah,
until
Bowling
we
Green's
get
actually
bids.
been bid.
Yeah.
That number's tight.
So, what does the board want to do? Or do we want to move forward, and really moving forward would only be a step of saying, we're going to now release this money that we've been holding for you for over a year, and whatever extra you have for these projects. And then as those projects come in, we'll basically have another opportunity to say, this is what it cost. Yes, we're going to go ahead and do it. Right? That's your understanding?
You'll definitely see those construction projects back with the agreements.
Chief Loftus, all of these projects are going through county procurement policies.
That is
right?
correct.
Right, so any money, it would go through 3 bids, and you would be, okay.
What, 3 or more bids?
3 or more bids, okay.
Correct, depending on the cost. It's an invitation to bid. And that's why we're here.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Chief Loftus, is there any way that we can take vehicles similar to what you're buying out of some of the fire stations and actually replace those in the fire stations with the newer vehicles? The 3 vehicles that you're talking about?
No. None of the fire stations, except for Ladysmith, has a small utility vehicle. They have vehicles that are in excess of $55,000, excursions, those kind of vehicles, because they carry more equipment than a staff vehicle does. So they are in the CIP because they're in excess of $55,000. If I want to buy an F-250 pickup that's diesel to do logistics, that's probably going to be in the capital improvement plan because of the cost. So none of our stations have small vehicles that would fall in this bracket. They're more expensive. We're not buying Tahoes anymore for us. We're buying little Ford Explorers is basically what you're getting. And
So none of the rescue squad, none of the fire stations in the county have a vehicle like this at all?
no, and I can go right down the list of
Well,
utilities.
but I'm just going to parrot your statement back to you. None of our fire stations have a vehicle like this that they could use also in their inventory in their stations.
Not as we're currently configured, that is correct. They are larger vehicles being used as utilities. If I wanted to go out and buy a full, I'll use Sparta for example. Sparta has a utility vehicle. If I were to go to replace that vehicle with what they're carrying, I would need a larger vehicle than today's Ford Explorer. I would be getting an Excursion or a Suburban or one of those larger vehicles to carry the amount of equipment and the amount of people.
Sparta does have a small SUV, though.
Correct, but it is not the size of a Ford Explorer.
But it's the size of the vehicle that you're going to buy now.
No, what I'm buying is a Ford Explorer. They call it a utility vehicle, but it is a Ford Explorer, the new Ford Explorer.
State contract. Ford
State
Explorer.
contract. I didn't come up with the name.
Sparta's truck is a brush truck, right?
Sparta has a utility vehicle, which they use as a licensed EMS vehicle, carries the full complement of basic life support, same thing as an ambulance carries, except it doesn't carry people. That's why you can't squeeze all that into one of these small. Have you seen them? It's a modern-looking Ford Explorer. It's very small on the inside, not capable of carrying all the equipment that those vehicles, those station-based vehicles need.
One of the vehicles we want to push down is a Ford Excursion that Deputy Garnett drives. It's a fully licensed EMS vehicle. Must remain plugged in. It's got all of the various sundry type things, and that'll be pushed into the field and replaced with an Explorer that has a V6 motor. The biggest motor would be in it is a V6. Some of them are 4-cylinders. So, I mean, just the gas difference from that 6-liter diesel that he's driving around and having to be plugged in with all that equipment that can then be given to somebody that actually is running calls as more than somebody that's in a command role.
And that's a good example. Deputy Chief Garnett's vehicle is too big for his function. It carries the full complement of what you would see in a station-based vehicle. But it's costly. It's got to have a refrigerated drug box. It's a diesel.
Do we know where that's going to go?
That will be replacing a 2006 Crown Vic with 161,000 miles.
Where?
Captain Bonham.
So it's still going to stay in staff?
It is.
Well, I hear the call stuff, but I'm just not hearing it from the folks in the community. I'm hearing that staff doesn't run that many calls, and I guess that's the battle I'm fighting in my head.
And that's why we're trying to downsize those vehicles.
Yeah, but I just heard that you're going to give that Ford Excursion with everything in it to Captain Bonham, who's on staff, who doesn't necessarily run calls, and that's the real battle that I'm fighting all the time.
He runs a significant number of calls. I mean, that is part of his role.
And that was a Ford Explorer, not an Excursion. So
He's getting an Excursion because it is that larger-based vehicle to replace one of his. But he is out in the field providing direct service. That is a vehicle for him. The other thing is when you look at some of these station-based vehicles, and if we look at Utility 4, they've got a lower set of mileage. They weren't bought used. These vehicles we have were used.
I'm not even, I understand, believe me, the used, I mean, I was in the school system, every car we used to transport kids is an old sheriff's vehicle.
That's correct.
I mean, I know where they came from, I know how they got there, I understand that. I'm looking at the overall big picture, where these vehicles are going and the perception of how they're being used.
I understand the perception, yes, sir.
And that's truly the battle in my head that I'm fighting is, and I know when they'll show up, they all go to staff people, everybody in the field's going to point all the way to your office and go, yep, all the new vehicles reside right there.
Understood.
And that's, I'm not debating the need for new vehicles. When you said we were going to push that Excursion out to someplace, I thought it was going to a station. It's not. So that's just the overall.
We can push the Excursion to the station and take their utility out. They're probably not going to like that, but that we could change that perception.
I'm just painting a different picture for you with the same colors.
Oh, I know the perception. I'm fully aware.
And when
But I'm
those
trying to
three
do what's right.
vehicles show up, they show up at your office with those folks in them, and they're sitting there. I'm just telling you, as I'm sitting here, what the perception is.
You make a good point.
I
think
may,
we're good. I think
sir.
we're good. I think we're good. We're going to decide right now whether we appropriate the money, because again, as I said before, we had a lot of good discussion. We're really just appropriating the money to the fire and rescue budget, and then the chief is going to come back before he buys anything. So we have a several-step process. So let's just take this first step, let the chief digest all the comments we had, and move forward. So I need a motion right now to allow the, I flipped the page, to allow the proposed usage of emergency reserve funds to be reallocated. I guess that's general enough. And then I don't have to have those numbers. That's the motion we need. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Black. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries. What that means, Chief, is we've now, according to the Commonwealth's laws, appropriated money, so you have a project that's funded. You can go out and get more bids. You can work the car thing. The car scenarios, you might want to send us an idea of what you have. If you got a spreadsheet on the cars, just so we can make sure. And then we're good.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Good luck on Ladysmith. We want to see you groundbreaking February 1st? Okay. Next and last agenda item would be information on calendar items. Mr. Cully, you got all of that?
We included in your packet, of course, the Fred ridership report, so
Right.
look over that at your leisure. Thursday night, 6 o'clock, senior gala. Look forward to seeing everybody. I know that they are looking forward to seeing everybody. There's 6 at the high school. We do need to have a meeting next week. I know there's some question that came up, but I do have some items that need to be dealt with contractually next week so we can get some projects moving. We got to get some folks on board, one of which is reassessment, the other which is engineering. We have that Bowling Green grant for Stag Leader that we're working on. We need to get the engineer on board. They're actually going to attend the meeting before we have the contract, but we really, to meet our requirements with DHCD, yeah, I was talking about.
Running sewer out there.
Correct. The board approved it.
We were talking to, approved it based on
Grant funding. We're working with the grant folks, but we got to get an engineer on board, and so we didn't quite have that detail for tonight's meeting, and knowing we were going to have next week's meeting, we felt we could get that done. Please don't forget the 13th at 2 o'clock is the courthouse naming and Mr. Morris' portrait on the 13th, 2 to 4. We've planned a holiday employee luncheon. It'll be at Bowling Green Town Hall, 12 to 2 on the 17th. We planned that on a Wednesday so that most of our convenience center employees and those folks that work in those centers will be able to attend because those centers are all closed on Wednesday. And then we plan it for a 2-hour period so people can have staggered lunches and the offices can remain operational during that time. We will be making service awards at 1:15. So if you can be around then, we'll be recognize those employees with those 5-year intervals of service.
What day was that?
The 17th. So those were the important things. We do have, and I think Mrs. Hall sent out an invitation to a legislative dinner at Lowry's. Some of you have attended that in the past. I know we need a head count and need to send that to Essex for those of you that want to go, so please let her know. And that will be the 7th, Wednesday the 7th, 2015, it's hard to say, at 5:30. So just let us know who wants to go, and if anybody needs rides, we'll work all that out. Just so I don't forget, I will be on vacation starting Monday the 22nd through the where's January?
Oh, through January 2nd.
Through January, Saturday, I'll be out of town. But Mr. Parton will be.
January 5th you come back, or January 2nd?
I'll be back on that Monday the 5th.
The 5th, okay. Mr. Parton's going to be in charge?
But I will still have my cell phone.
Okay.
The capable hands of Mr. Parton.
No, vacations should be vacations, so we'll work through Mr. Parton. All right, closing board comments, Mr. Taylor?
I have none.
Mr. Black?
No comments.
Mr. Underwood?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seeley?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Again, we're going to meet the 9th. Did we advertise that already to make sure we're good? It's a regular meeting? Oh, that's the second Tuesday. Okay. This was the fourth
This was
meeting
the-
before
right.
Thanksgiving. All right, I have no board comments. Could we please have a
Motion
motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn? Mr. Seeley and Mr. Taylor, all in favor, aye?